Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. Have you ever thought about happiness? Like really thought about it? Is it something you work for? Something you earn? Or could it actually be a gift? Something to ponder as we jump into this deep dive.
Ooh, I like that. A gift.
Yeah, today we'll be exploring a book that's a little bit spiritual guide and a little bit call to action.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's Pope Francis's I Want You to Be Happy.
Oh, interesting choice.
And of course, a link to the book will be in the description below, so grab a copy if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
Now, before we get too far, please do us a favor and like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
Yeah, what they said.
All right, so about this book. One of the things that really grabbed me was how Pope Francis talks about God.
How so?
He calls God a God of newness. I don't know, it really struck me as different. Like it's not the old, rigid way of thinking about God.
Right, right.
He's saying God is a God who is always doing something new, surprising us, shaking things up.
Yeah, that's definitely a fresh perspective.
And it's this idea of newness that really connects to the idea of transformation, I think.
Uh-huh.
Like, we have to be ready for that newness, right? Let go of old ways of thinking, old patterns, maybe even old habits that are, holding us back.
Yeah, baggage. We all have it.
He even uses this analogy of wineskins. New wine needs new wineskins.
I remember that.
So we need to be like new vessels to be able to really experience God's grace, right?
To hold all that new wine.
Exactly. So I'm curious, what do you think about this whole, becoming a new wineskin idea? What does that even mean in our own lives, really?
Well, for me, it's about,
Is it letting go of old habits?
yeah, that's part of it, for sure.
Or maybe embracing a whole new perspective on things?
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just us as individuals.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, Pope Francis is really saying that true happiness is also tied to how we live in the world, how we interact with, well, everyone really, but especially maybe those at the edges of society.
The margins.
Yes.
Yeah, I see that. It's like he's pushing us to not just think about our own happiness, right? It's bigger than that.
Way bigger.
I mean, he keeps saying stuff like, go out to the peripheries, encounter the poor and marginalized, and, oh, this one really got me, see the face of Christ in the suffering. Powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is.
It's like true joy. It doesn't come from closing ourselves off, but from connecting with, well, everyone, right? Especially with people who are often forgotten.
It's like he's saying that service, actually serving others, that's connected to the Eucharist.
Oh, wow.
Which for Catholics, that's like the central act of worship, right?
Right, right.
He's saying that the body of Christ, broken in the Eucharist, it's also seen in the people we serve.
Wow, that's some deep imagery there.
It suggests that those acts of charity, they're a way of participating in that same kind of self-giving love.
So, almost like our love for other people, it's kind of an extension of the Eucharist, a way of, I don't know, making that love real in the world.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
And then, I don't know if you remember this part, but there's this example from a movie.
Oh, yeah? Which one?
It's called Babette's Feast. Have you seen it?
Oh, it's been a while.
So there's this chef, and she spends all her money, all her fortune, to make this incredible meal for other people.
Wow. Okay, I vaguely remember that.
And it's not about what she gets back.
Right.
It's about her giving absolutely everything, her best.
It's such a beautiful contrast to the way we often approach giving.
How so?
Like, we're always thinking about, what we get in return. What's our ROI? It's all transactional, so calculated.
I know, right?
But real generosity, the kind that leads to, that deep and lasting joy, it's about giving freely without expecting anything back.
So then how do we even begin to cultivate that kind of, I guess, extravagant generosity in our own lives? It's got to start somewhere.
It does. It does.
What are some, small but concrete ways that we can start? He calls it living gratuitously.
He does.
I love that phrase. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it starts with, well, maybe being willing to get our hands dirty,
Interesting.
He talks about that in the book, about getting involved in the messiness of the world.
Right.
Not being afraid to get out of our comfort zones, which, let's face it, it's so easy to stay in our little bubbles, right?
It is, yeah. It's so easy to just sort of get caught up in our own lives and forget about what's going on around us.
Exactly.
But I mean, he's reminding us that real, lasting happiness, it comes from connecting with something, well, something bigger.
Definitely.
And that might mean getting uncomfortable, taking risks, stepping out in faith, even if we don't know what will happen.
It's like he's connecting that idea of stepping out of our comfort zones with true freedom.
Oh, how so?
He actually says this: freedom is not always getting to do what we want. And I think we forget that sometimes.
Yeah, we do.
Freedom is the gift of being able to choose goodness.
Ooh, Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying that real freedom comes from, I don't know, choosing what's right, aligning ourselves with what God wants for us.
Right.
And that can be hard.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
might mean saying no to things that seem fun or exciting, but in the end, they lead us away from what truly matters.
It's interesting because he's not a fan of this idea of just enjoy the moment.
Right.
He even says, I ask you to be revolutionary. I ask you to go against the grain. I ask you to rebel against this culture that sees everything as temporary and ultimately believes you are incapable of being responsible, which would have you believe you are incapable of true love.
Whoa, okay. Be revolutionaries. That's a strong statement.
Yeah,
It's like he's giving us permission to break free from this culture of instant gratification, superficiality,
totally.
he's calling us to something deeper, more, I don't know, meaningful.
It's not that he's condemning pleasure, right? It's more like he's questioning if it's really the ultimate goal.
Yeah,
Like true happiness has to be rooted in something deeper.
deeper, yeah. Like commitments, love that lasts.
Yeah, exactly.
And that takes, well, courage, right?
Courage.
To go against what everyone else is doing, to make choices that might be hard or unpopular.
Yeah, yeah.
He actually talks about youthful courage, that willingness to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult.
And he makes sure to remind us that we're not alone in this. We have the support of the church, our community, and, well, God's love,
Right.
right? We're not in this alone.
There was this one quote that really struck me. It's from Robert Hugh Benson's book, The Lord of the World. It says, "It's not hard to die well. It's hard to live well."
Oh, wow. That's good.
Right. It's like he's saying the real test isn't death, but living a life that matters, a life that reflects God's love.
And there's this part where he talks about memory, not just dwelling on the past, but really learning from it.
Okay.
Like let it shape us, guide us.
Yeah, I like that.
He uses this image that I love. Pearls are born in the wound of an oyster.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to need a minute to process that one. It's beautiful, but it's a lot.
It is.
But it's like he's saying even those painful things, those hard experiences, they can become beautiful.
Man.
They can teach us something.
And he also encourages us to see our lives as part of a bigger picture, right? A story that stretches back through history and forward into eternity.
I like that.
Like, he says, your personal history has a place within the greater history of the church.
Now, it's not just our little story. It's part of something so much bigger.
Right.
And he even talks about that feeling we all have, the wanting to erase the past. Forget those painful parts.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But he reminds us there is no saint without a past and no sinner without a future.
That's good.
It's hopeful. It's like a reminder that even when we mess up, God's mercy is there.
It is. It's always there.
And there's this part where he talks about being really honest with ourselves, looking inside and figuring out why we do the things we do.
Yeah, self-reflection.
He even says, ask yourself at the end of the day, what happened of importance within me today?
Right.
Who influenced me to do these things, whether bad or good?
Heavy stuff.
It is. And, he doesn't shy away from sin either. He calls it the rebellion of man's will against God's.
Yeah, he doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, he doesn't. But he also emphasizes God's forgiveness, like how powerful it is.
Absolutely.
He says divine forgiveness is immensely effective because it does what it says. It does not hide the sin. It eradicates and erases it. It removes the sin at the root. Wow.
Wow.
That's just such a powerful image of redemption. It's not just covering up our mistakes. It's like they're completely gone.
Like we're made new.
Yeah, exactly. And he connects that to how we forgive others.
Right.
He says how sad it is when our hearts are closed and we are unable to forgive. And I think that's so true,
It is.
Resentment, anger, and revenge, he says, gain the upper hand, making our lives miserable and blocking a joyful commitment to mercy.
It's like holding on to that anger, that hurt, it just poisons us.
It does. It really does. And he even reminds us of that line from the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
So simple, but so powerful.
It is. It's like our ability to forgive others, it's tied to God's forgiveness of us.
Yeah, and it's not just something passive, like we just receive it and that's it.
Right.
Francis really wants us to be active in that forgiveness and that mercy, to actually become instruments of mercy in the world.
I love that. Instruments of mercy.
He has this phrase, blessed are open hands. And he's talking about, not being afraid to get our hands dirty, to reach out, to share what we have, to give.
Right. It's the opposite of that whole, accumulate more mindset.
Exactly. He calls it the mindset of accumulation. He says, the culture of competition never talks about the end of life, only the ends we want to achieve in life through accumulating, climbing, and reaching in every way possible, always crushing people beneath us.
Wow, yeah, that's kind of a bleak picture, but I mean, it's true. We're always striving for more.
It is true.
And he says shrouds don't have pockets.
Oof. Okay, that's a good one.
It is, because at the end of the day, we can't take any of that stuff with us.
We can't.
What matters is how we've lived, how we've loved, how we've served others.
And it all circles back to choosing goodness over those fleeting pleasures.
Right, right.
He says this, "It is disturbing to see young people squandering some of the best years of their lives, wasting their energy by chasing after people who peddle false illusions, who exist in great numbers, who in turn end up robbing them of their true happiness."
It's not that we can't have fun or enjoy life, right? But he's encouraging us to look for something deeper,
For sure.
to find joy in things that really matter, things that feed our souls.
He highlights the beauty in those everyday moments.
Oh yeah, like what?
He talks about the laborer coming home tired but feeling good after a day's work, or a family just enjoying a simple meal together, an elderly couple still holding hands after years of eggage.
Those are beautiful.
They are.
And he even says, and this one, I don't know, it made me laugh. He says, spending your life in front of the mirror is an ugly thing.
Ooh, burn.
It's true, though, right? It's like a challenge to, I don't know, focus outward, find beauty in the ordinary, be grateful for those little things.
Exactly. And to embrace generosity, that live gratuitously idea, giving without expecting anything in return.
Yeah, like Babette's feast.
Exactly.
Giving our best, putting our hearts into something bigger than ourselves.
And I don't know if you remember this part, but he talks about this idea of a safe haven. That temptation to just hide from the world and everything going on.
Yeah, like a retreat.
He actually compares it to the prophet Jonah who, tried to run from God.
Right. Tried to hide.
He names a few ways that manifests: individualism, spiritualism, addiction, settling down, pessimism. He says it can be hard to leave a familiar place and way of life.
It is. Change is hard.
It is. But he also says, don't let others rob you of hope and joy or drug you into becoming a slave to their interests. Dare to be more. Your being is more important than any object.
Ooh, wow. That's a powerful statement. Like, don't settle for less.
Right.
Don't let other people dictate your happiness.
Exactly. And he even encourages us to be, and this one I really liked, thorns in the side of the world.
Okay, what does that even mean?
Like standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, even when people don't like it. He says, something about the holy beauty present in the life of the children of God is unsettling to them. It demands that people take a stance.
So it's not about being aggressive or judging people, but it's about, like, living in a way that challenges the status quo, right?
Yeah, and it points to a different way, a better way.
And then there's this part about fighting apathy. That spiritual, I don't know, emptiness, maybe, that can creep in.
He calls it a terrible trap that can lead to a slow suicide.
Whoa, okay, that's dark.
It is, and he's saying it starts with sadness and slides downward so that there is no joy.
So we have to fight against that sadness, that negativity.
He tells us to guard your heart, stay vigilant.
Stay awake, stay engaged. I like that.
Right, and he uses this great image to describe someone who is truly alive, someone who's like, refreshing to be around. He calls them a bubbling spring.
Ooh, I love that.
They just, radiate joy and generosity, and it makes you think, where does that come from?
Yeah, where does it come from?
It's not something we create, it's something we receive.
Oh, I see.
It comes from being connected to the source of life, letting God's love flow through us.
And he says the world is indeed full of peril, and in it there are many dark places. But still there is much that is fair, and though in all lands love is now mingled with grief, it grows perhaps the greater.
So beautiful, right?
It is. Like, even when things are tough, there's still good.
There is. And love, it doesn't go away, it grows.
And then he talks about discernment. Learning to tell the difference between those things that are just shiny and exciting but empty.
Right. The fool's gold.
And the things that bring real peace, even if they're hard.
He compares preparing for the Lord's coming to cleaning our homes to welcome a loved one.
Okay.
And it should involve us reflecting on our lives, on what we should be doing.
So it's not just about going to church and praying.
Right.
It's about, like, how we live our lives every day and how that contributes to the world around us.
Exactly. And in that vein, he goes on to talk about vocation, which is, like our calling.
Right?
And he says, whether you're married, single, working, retired, whatever, all of those are opportunities for holiness.
Oh, interesting.
Like there are ways to live out God's love no matter what our life looks like. And he gives this great example of Saint Jerome,
Oh, yeah. What about him?
Well, he like offered everything to God, but
Okay.
then God asked for one more thing.
What was that?
His sins.
Wow. That's humbling.
It is.
It's like, even when we try to be perfect, to give everything.
There's still that part of us
Yeah.
that needs God's mercy.
And it's not about being perfect,
Right?
right?
No, not at all.
It's about letting go of that need to control everything, letting ourselves be transformed by God.
By love.
Yeah. And that leads to this really important point he makes throughout the book. Salvation, it's a gift. It's not something we earn.
No, we can't earn it.
He actually says we were saved in the name of love.
It's free.
And it's so easy to fall into that trap,
Oh, totally.
think that we have to save ourselves.
Through our work, through our achievements.
Yeah, money,
But
status.
we can somehow earn it.
Right. But he uses that parable, the rich fool who thought he had it all,
Yeah. And
and then he lost it all overnight.
oof.
It's like a wake-up call. True security doesn't come from what we have, but from trusting in God.
Yeah, from something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And it goes back to what we were talking about before, right? About letting go of control
Yeah.
and really embracing that freedom that comes from surrender.
He talks about being wary of people who peddle illusions.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Those who promise happiness through stuff or, those fleeting pleasures.
Right. The quick fixes.
He says those who speak about dreams but peddle illusions are trying to manipulate your happiness.
It's not that we can't have dreams, right?
No, of course not.
Or enjoy things, but we have to be smart.
Discerning.
Yeah, discerning. Look beneath the surface. Ask ourselves, what's really going to bring us lasting joy?
Because real joy, it's often found in those deeper things.
Right.
In living a life that has purpose, a life of love, a life of service.
And he's telling us, be revolutionaries. Resist that pressure to conform.
To that instant gratification culture.
And he says this, and it's so good. Have the courage to be happy. Do not be content with mediocrity, with merely getting by, with sitting down and getting comfy.
It's a challenge, isn't it?
It is, but it's a good one. Like, get up, get out there.
Embrace the adventure.
Yeah, live a life that matters. And he brings up that Arctic terns again, that little bird that travels so far.
Thousands of miles.
And he says, set the navigator of your existence on a great destination. Upward.
I love that image.
Me too. Don't limit yourself.
Aim high.
And he's honest. He says, look, it's not going to be easy.
There will be bumps in the road.
There will be times when we fall.
For sure.
But get back up, keep going. He says, in the art of climbing, it's not important if you fall. What matters is that you don't stay down.
That's so good.
Right? And we don't have to do it alone.
No, we need each other.
He says, walk with others, with your friends, with those who love you. This will help you reach your destination.
It's true. We need our people.
We do. We need that encouragement, that support. And of course, we have God's love too.
Always.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into I Want You to Be Happy, I'm curious, what really stuck with you? What resonated? What's one small thing, the small action you can take today to embrace this whole idea of newness, generosity, or service? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.